This video is helping you with G1 questions, specifically the 1A and 2As. This is from G1 paper from January 2010, and the information here then is about the butterfly, the mountain ringlet butterfly, and the information shows about the change in distribution of the mountain ringlet butterfly. The marks are 5 marks, and the question that goes with this information is: use figure 1 to describe the influence of climate change on the change in distribution of the mountain ringlet butterfly. So as with all these questions, they are describe. So the worst thing you can do is explain as to why it is like this. So the description will come from the information shown within the resource. And the examiners are awarding 1 mark for each comment that looks at how climate change has affected the distribution of this butterfly. And they'll award marks for information to do with retreat into higher altitudes, the influence of higher temperatures. These 2 pieces of information shown here, warmer temperatures shown here, that you'd have to go into higher up hillsides in search, that they search for cooler conditions. The changes in the natural habitat, as they retreat to further up the hillsides, then the natural habitat changes with that as well. There's also the chance that they might possibly become extinct, they might die out as a result of these changes in climate. The pattern also is that they'll be lost from England and Scotland and from lowland areas that are becoming too warm for it. But again, remembering not to explain why this is happening. Also, things that are with it as well, that there are other species that could cause it to become extinct. Also within it as well, changes in grazing patterns, which are along the bottom here, as to the influences that are causing this change, and also the effects on population size are all descriptions on how climate change is affecting this butterfly. So as I say, the key word here is to do with the description. Okay, describe the influence. And really, you're not using anything from your notes or from classes. You're just using the skill of a geographer in describing using this information that you are provided with. This is question 2A, and the question is: using figure 2A and 2B, describe the links between the change in land use and the surface runoff in Long Eagle Creek drainage basin. And the examiners have said they'll give 3 marks for commenting on changes in the diagrams. So what you'd look for are changes between 1973 and 1991. So first of all, you'd look for the biggest change, which is here, which is the high density residential. So residential area buildings such as flats, lots of people live in them, and other, that's the main change there. And these are percentages, so you could quantify them by working out the percentages for them. The next increase could be seen in commercial, so that might be shops or something like that. And out of everything, those are the 2 that increase. But the question asks about changes again, so you could talk about the things that have reduced. So the forested area has reduced. The amount of land used in the drainage basin used for grass and pasture is reduced as well. Low density residential has stayed the same. Agriculture has relatively stayed the same as well. So that's how the land use has changed. Change in surface runoff, it goes from 1970 to 2000. The units are in centimetres, and you can see here the general pattern is one where there's increased runoff, and you could work out by how much it's changed. You could describe the change as fluctuating. You can talk about minimum amounts of surface runoff and maximum amount of surface runoff, but the general trend, or if you could draw a best fit line, would show one of increasing. But the question says about describing the links between the 2. So these are just descriptions. So what you would be looking at then is the how these changes within land use have led to surface runoff. So you would just talk about how high density residential and low density residential, how these two changes of land use have led to an increase in the amount of water that runs off. They say 3 marks for talking about the changes that occur between land use and changes in surface runoff, and then the link that connects the two of them. But remember that this is a description, so most of it is just describing these changes and then making sure you finish off the question by talking about the link between the two.